سلام. امروز با هم دیگه رفتیم نه مثل اینکه جای خاصی نرفتیم. امروز داریم میریم استودیوی پیوست که پایینه و قراره به اتفاق شما با یکی از مشهورترین و موفقترین ایرانی هایی که توی جهان و توی آمریکا دارن فعالیت میکنن گپ بزنیم. هادی پرتوی رو خیلی از ما به خاطر بنیاد کد.org میشناسیم که در زمینه آموزش جهانی و غیر انتفاعی زبان‌های برنامه‌نویسی کار میکنه. هادی بر استارتاپ های خیلی خفن و شرکت های بزرگ تکی از دراپ باکس گرفته تا مایکروسافت، مای اسپیس و فیسبوک کار کرده و هنوزم با بسیاری از اونها همکاری میکنه. تجربه سرمایه گذاری مشترک با بسیاری از سرمایه گذارهای دره سیلیکونی داره. هادی اومده و قراره با اتفاق ما در مورد این حرف بزنه که پروژه های جدید و خفنش توی ایران چیه و در مورد این حرف بزنه که چطور قراره که فرهنگ سرمایه گذاری در جهان شاید بعد از ایلان ماسک تغییر کنه. شاید هم نه. بریم ببینیم حرف‌های بی‌واسطه این ایرانی که توی دره سیلیکونی فعاله برای شما هم به اندازه من جالبه یا نه. Hadi John, let's start with your family actually. It was on the topics. I know, in Iran you're pretty famous for coming from a long dynasty of entrepreneurs. Of course, you and your family, you're known for your investment in many companies more than code.org. I don't know, Dropbox, your collaboration with Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and even Steve Jobs. It's very, magical to Iranian people. But when we step back, how was it for young Hadi to start this way? Is it one of those old money things that your family tells you, come Hadi, you can invest in anything you want, or is one of those things that you try to learn and earn things and then invest in more companies such as Dropbox and others, even Zappos, I suppose, and even schools in Africa?
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting me. My background is definitely unusual because I was born into a family of entrepreneurs, the Khosrow Shahi family, and my grandfather and his brothers, together with their father, Hassan Khosrow Shahi, started one of the largest corporations in Iran, in the 1900s, the Alborz Corporation and Tolidaro and all these other companies.
They are legends in Iran. They are legends.
I was very, very young. So when I was 6 years old is when the revolution happened, and I was too young to understand what was going on. But, everybody from my extended family left the country. The company they had built, the corporations were nationalized. And, I went from being, one of the grandchildren in this very wealthy family to being basically, the son of a professor, my father who had helped start Sharif University. And, it was a big fall from going from the child of the multimillionaires to being the child of the professor. But as a 6-year-old, you don't actually notice very much different. What I really noticed was all the changes from, my dais and my khales and my cousins were all gone. So everybody that I liked playing with was suddenly no longer in Tehran. And for me, my career in tech started years later. After a decade, my family moved to the United States in 1984. I was 11 years old. I started studying, I had already taught myself coding in Iran, but I started studying computer science, and I, went to Harvard University. And I basically, at this point, started just basically pulling myself up from very humble beginnings as an immigrant. Because when we came to America, we had very, very little money, and even the Khosrow Shahi grandfather that I had living in America barely had any money. He and his wife my grandfather was living in a 3-bedroom condo. So there wasn't really any...
Out.
Did we come from old money? In a way, I came from old money, but it's old money that disappeared.
I wanted to demystify Partovi's. I just wanted to do that. Because when anything, I mean, the family name has an old money ring to it. Khosrow Shahi, you know what I mean, of course. And when you talk to ordinary people in the Iranian startup or innovation ecosystem, they are like, of course, they had these roots in investments and hedge funds, and they went to America, and it was the beginning of an American dream for them. I'm like, I'm not familiar with these guys, but it should be more complicated than that.
It's not quite that. It's more like the grandfathers all built all this wealth, and then it was gone. And then the grandchildren, you know, upon coming in America, starting from nothing, each of us individually thought, you know, I'm the grandchildren of entrepreneurs. I should be able to make something, you know.
And still here you are. I mean, you're famous for being, for having a good taste. Apart from not investing in Google, I heard about that, but I mean, generally, you're doing okay for your family escape. Don't you think so?
I'm doing very well. But my point is, I'm not sure any of the successful Khosrow-Shahis learned investing from the company that our grandparents had 50 years ago. You know, basically, our grandparents had a lot of wealth, but what we learned from our grandparents was probably more than anything else, family values and the importance of staying together as a family. But myself, my brother, my cousins, each of us individually, I think, got sort of our business instincts more from, you know, growing up as immigrants. When you grow up poor in a new country with no money, you naturally develop the desire to create wealth, and especially since our family had been wealthy, had this sense of, it was taken away from us. How do I make back the money that we lost? You know, and this sense that I should be able to succeed because my grandfather was an entrepreneur and his brother was an entrepreneur and his father was an entrepreneur, so I can be an entrepreneur as well.
There you go. There's that really important role models in your life.
Yes.
Okay, so nothing in the blood or in the water, I suppose?
I don't know if it's in the blood and the water, but I would say Iranian culture is a culture of education. And I think that's definitely been true within my family of valuing education a lot. And then the other thing is in our family, we are very close. The cousins all really support each other. And so, and my brother and I support each other. So there's always been this sense that it's okay to take risks because you have, you know, a family safety net, effectively.
What was your biggest risk? I mean, you had this colorful life as an entrepreneur, investor, or even contributor to many tech startups. What's your biggest risk, Hadijan?
I mean, I would say I take risks all the time. Coming to the United States.
Doing this interview.
So, you know, when we were young, coming to the United States and leaving everything we had in Iran behind was a big risk. You know, we had no money in this new country. Neither of my parents had a job. And, you know, when we started out, all of us shared one bed. You know, imagine being 12 and 13 years old, sharing a bed with your twin brother and your mother and your father on one bed, you know.
Luxurious life.
Yeah, so that just taking the risk of immigration was a big risk. But for me then, starting my first startup was a big risk. I had a fantastic, well-paying job at Microsoft. I was being recruited by Steve Ballmer to stay at the company, and he said, pick anything you want to do at the company and we'll let you do it. And I said, no, I want to give it all up and start a new company. That was definitely a big risk. And this was right before the dot-com bubble burst. So it was in 1999 before the market started crashing. But I'm still taking risks. I take investing risks. You know, most people say the safe way of investing is to spread your investments in multiple places. I have all my investments in one stock. So some people think that's very risky.
And what is that? it should be golden.
My one stock is the company that I'm on the board of directors of. It's called Axon, but it's been a very successful company. So, you know, I joined the board of this company in 2010, and it was at $3 a share. It's now, I think, around $690 a share. So it's worked out really well.
Yes, it's big enough. As a non-profit organization, I'm always fascinated with the way you emphasize on code.org, Hadi Jan. I mean, I shouldn't touch that, right? Okay, sorry. I'm really fascinated the way you're obsessed with this entity, to be honest. Because of course, the way I look at you, it's like an entrepreneur, a little bit cutthroat, like the fact that you mentioned about your stock at Axon. But everything I search online or look up you in internet, it's like your whole public identity is invested on code.org. What is it, your mission in this entity, and what is it that you really want to achieve right now?
First of all, I would say I don't think of entrepreneurship as being cutthroat.
Only successful ones say that.
Maybe, but I'm not sure I've ever considered my career in business as being a cutthroat business. I think of it, I always pursue win-win relationships, and I think my success as an investor has been because of investing in entrepreneurs and helping them win and supporting people. So supporting people, if they end up being successful, can end up bringing you success. And it's the best way of making money because you're helping other people as well. And for me, there's a lot of reasons why I started Code.org and why it is the main thing that gives me life fulfillment. Part of it is my father, Pertوی, and having been the founding professor at Sharif University, I've always had education, in my upbringing, and I've always looked up to my father. He was just such an incredible role model and such an unbelievable professor. My entire life, I've had people come to me since I was young saying, "پدر شما پروفسور من بود، چقدر پروفسور عالی بود," and then hearing stories about him at the university. So I always felt pride in my father, and that's one reason for starting Code.org. But throughout my journey in technology as a manager, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, what I also saw is that every technology company is struggling with hiring software talent. And learning how to create technology has become one of the most important things anybody could learn. So I started Code.org because I believe creating technology and understanding technology should be a basic part of the school system. And I had reached a stage in my life where I decided I've made enough money for myself. I can make more money, that's always nice, but I really wanted to have an impact on the world. And when it came to thinking what kind of impact, my father was a big part of my inspiration.
I'm sure he is, but when we are talking about education, as far as I know, you've been involved with computer science education in more than 70 countries, am I right? And if that fact is true, I really want to know, beyond personal level, what is it that you really want to achieve in global level? Because it seems that beyond the borders of even USA, you want to achieve a new kind of education system for computer science. And I don't know what is it exactly, because it's an ever-changing technology. It's not like many countries, they are oblivious to the fact that IT is really important right now. I don't know what's your mission on global scale. Could you give us a hint on that?
Sure. I'll describe this at a more sort of almost the level of what a student may think. Or, if you went anywhere in Tehran, in Tokyo, in Australia, South America, and you went into a coffee shop and looked at a bunch of people, you know that every one of those people knows, what a red blood cell is, or what a digestive system is, or how electricity lights up a light bulb, the positive and negative ends of a battery. These things aren't, nobody would say, if you said that water is H2O, nobody would say, "Oh, I don't do that stuff. I don't understand that at all." Everybody knows those things because they learn them in school. It's not the same with
internet.
I don't know. Let's talk about 5G.
Exactly.
People really think that they can get corona from 5G. I mean,
right. When you start talking about algorithms or cookies or apps or HTTP technology, software, people suddenly get scared. And the difference is we learn about red blood cells in high school. In Dabirestan, you learn water is H2O, you learn how plants make sugar, you learn how electricity works. So as an adult, those things aren't intimidating to you. But everything about technology intimidates the adults because they never got introduced to how it works as part of the school system. So the ultimate vision of Code.org is that every school and every student should teach and learn computer science so that everybody grows up with at least a basic level of familiarity. That doesn't mean that everybody should become a coder. People will become nurses and farmers and architects, lawyers, but every nurse, every farmer, every lawyer, every architect, all of them need to be familiar with technology because it is changing everything about our world. And if you look 20, 30 years in the future, you're not going to want a lawyer who says, I don't understand the technology, because they're going to need to be technical, just at least a little bit. They won't be writing apps and creating code, but how the laws are going to be laws about technology, the documents are going to be digital, all these things. So, and that's true in every field. So the vision of Code.org is that every student in every school learns computer science.
Great. Hadijan, I hate to break it to you, but we don't have Dabirestan anymore, I guess. تغییرش دادن دوباره، درسته؟ اسمش تغییر کرده فکر کنم شد. Yes, they changed the name, the coding again, dude. I don't get it either, but it's really complicated. Anyway, speaking of education, but you're mainly focused as a foundation, Code.org. As far as I get it, you're mainly focused on computer science. You're more focused on the knowledge and to get a deeper understanding of how these things work. And if I'm right about these things, it says that it's not exactly about computer skills, Hadijan, right? So, isn't when we are talking about technology, it's more about access and skills rather than science and knowledge.
That's true. So what I would say is much of the world is already working on making sure everybody has internet access or everybody knows how to turn on a computer, how to use a mouse. But I think how to use technology is becoming easier and easier and easier. In many schools in the United States, there used to be courses on how to browse the web, how to search the internet. That, in the 1990s, when the World Wide Web became popular, schools started teaching how to search the internet. Now you don't need to search. You don't need a course. You don't need a teacher to teach you how to search the internet. You just go to Google or wherever and type your questions and get easy answers. We're making technology easier and easier to use. I don't believe schools should be teaching how to use technology. Schools should be teaching how to create technology or how to understand the technology. And that's the difference between computer skills versus computer science. Computer science is understanding algorithms, computational thinking, how does the internet work, cybersecurity, what is artificial intelligence, not just learning how to be a user of artificial intelligence, but really understanding what's a neural network, how does training data impact it, things like that.
Please don't get me started on AI. We will get to that. Okay, speaking of education, I think the keyword for you is diversity. Every time that you talk about education and computer science, you're pushing this ultimate agenda of diversity. You have campaigns like Code Like Girl. And I really want to put more emphasis on that. What's behind this kind of agenda that coding and computer science should be educated in more diverse way, in any ways?
So almost everywhere, and this is actually not true in Iran or in some of the Middle East, but in most of the rest of the world, computer science is dominated by men, and it's usually white men. You know, if you think about famous technologists, if you even Google famous technology CEOs, most of them are
Definitely white male, yeah.
correct. And most are white, not all. We're now at a point where at least Satya Nadella or Sundar at Google, there's many that are no longer white. But either way, this is a problem. Technology is changing everything, and it's not great for only some parts of the population to be the ones creating it, you know. And when it comes to creating technology, maybe 1% of the world's population is creating the technology and the rest of us are using it. You know, anytime you use your phone, you probably imagine when you're using an app, you think, why don't they make an app that does this? Or why don't they do this? You know, why didn't they do it this way? And you're always talking about them. They are making the technology. And, you know, the only difference between them and us is education, is computer science education. And, you know, the people making the technology are humans too, but we need to diversify who gets the knowledge to become creators. We need to allow everybody, men and women, you know, black, white, Latino, you know, of all races, all ethnicities should have access. Education shouldn't be something that is only limited to you based on your gender or your wealth or where you grow up. And unfortunately, computer science education isn't available in every school. And even when it is available in the school, not every student participates. And that's leading to a field that is dominated by men, first of all, but also wealthier people are the ones who end up learning computer science because that's the schools that are teaching it.
And as a white male, middle-aged, privileged person, that doesn't worry you. That you're pushing for another racial or, I don't know, sexual ethnicities and etc. I mean, personally, you're okay with that?
I generally believe in equality of opportunity. And so for me, and I think that's a very human ideal. It's an American ideal, but it's really something everybody wants. Everybody wants kids to be treated as equal and to have a fair shot. The whole concept of an American dream is not just an American idea, it's a global idea that if you work hard and get good grades and do the things they tell you, you should be able to achieve your dreams. And education is the key to equality of opportunity, but only if you have diverse participation and diverse access. If only some people have access, then you don't really get equal opportunity. And so it's unfair that some schools teach computer science and some schools do not. The kids that go to the schools that teach computer science have an opportunity to learn the most valuable field in education, the field that differentiates the Bill Gateses and Mark Zuckerbergs and Elon Musks from regular people. Every one of those people studied computer science when they were in school because their school offered it.
Especially women. Why?
Well, why women? There's a particular reason. My mother was a computer scientist, long ago, and she worked as a systems analyst when we were living in Iran. But she got her master's in computer science at Boston University.
Could you mention her name?
Her name is Faride Purtوی. And so for me, it's not just that my father was a professor, my mother was a computer scientist. And when we came to the United States, she couldn't work in that field. As immigrants, she was working as a secretary during the day and as a clothing salesperson at night, working two different jobs just to struggle to pay the bills. I always thought, why is it that my mom isn't working in these same software jobs? And then every time I was working in the tech industry, every workplace I was in felt dominated by the men. That just seems wrong for half of the population to be not represented in creating what the future of the human race is going to look like. And I really believe technologists are really creating our future. And we really should have everybody at the table doing that.
That was beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, really. Let's go to your investment algorithm. Since you're so obsessed with the word, I invest in people, not the ideas, right? So isn't that Isn't that so risky? I mean, everybody talks about your early investments in companies such as Dropbox. But the thing is, when you eventually look at the story of companies such as Dropbox, it doesn't turn out that golden, to be honest. And it seems to me that the way you look at it is the way you look at code.org or even your other activities, the thing that you shared about not being a cutthroat entrepreneur. I think the thing is you want to invest on people that they are aligned with your values. Not really, it's not about the business and the profit, right?
I'm not sure I would say it that way. I mean, obviously, I would prefer to invest in somebody who has good values because otherwise they might steal my money. Who knows? But I would say the reason I prefer to invest in people than in ideas, I've learned through experience that a really great entrepreneur can make money from a really difficult and tough idea, and a really bad entrepreneur can take an amazing idea and ruin it and lose. So I've seen both examples of that where I think, oh, this is a great idea, and then I watch the company fail, and it's not because it was a bad idea. Somebody else did the same thing better and became successful. And I've also seen cases where I think, oh, this is a terrible idea, but because the entrepreneur was amazing, they managed to build a business out of it. And so, especially in technology, because things are changing so fast, it's hard to evaluate what's going to be the best idea, because what's the best idea today might be different tomorrow, and then the next day it's gone and you need something else. So you need to look for people who are going to come up with the idea every moment as things change. And then the other thing I'd say is I really believe in the phrase that Thomas Edison coined, where he said success is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, meaning the idea is just 1%. What you do with that idea is 99%. And so finding people who have the persistence, have the grit, the drive to stick with things, the hard work, those types of things are far more important than, oh, it's a really good idea. And when it comes to then a larger company, the team, the culture, how well do they work together? Are they, making things happen efficiently, or are they arguing and always stuck? Those things are all really important. So many investors look at spreadsheets and, create, business models of where things will go. I don't think I've ever used a spreadsheet to make an investment decision. It's much more my intuition of the people. And maybe I've just been lucky, I don't know. But for me, I try to evaluate the people. But it's not evaluating them on sort of their feel-good values. It's evaluating teamwork, persistence, intelligence, things like that.
You talked about the founder's mentality. I heard interviews with you that you mentioned this, and you push this idea that people like, I don't know, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg, and etc. They are more focused on details. They aren't afraid that to get nasty with people and with things and with details. But don't you think that this general idea of legendary founders, this tech prophets, it comes to an end with Elon Musk, Hadi, because
it comes to a what?
It comes to an end with Elon Musk because he's such a disruption from the idea of this kind of founders. He's not exactly about the details and the creation, and he's not really trying to get expert on anything rather than making these huge PR moves in public media. I don't know. Maybe your take on him is different. But it's really important for me to hear about. Is this a new kind of generation of entrepreneurs in USA? Is this the new wave of people who are more like Trump in the tech, or is this it's just a glitch in the algorithm of entrepreneurs, especially considering your philosophy, ideology of founder mentality?
So first of all, I've never met Elon Musk, so I can't really comment very much. The other founders you mentioned, I have some form of either relationship or experience with them. But to me, Elon doesn't look like a new trend. He seems like a really, really unique individual and not like a change in what founders do. But what I would say, what I mentioned about a founder's mentality, I believe Elon also has, which is just this concept of when it's your company and when you created it, founders delegate, but if something's going wrong, they go deep to fix it. You know what I mean? If you're hired as a manager and you have just, I have a salary and the board hires me to do my job as a CEO, and then you learn there's some problem, you might not just think, I'm going to stay up every night and weekend to fix it. But when it's your company, you do that. You basically, founders feel like the buck stops with me. Whereas hired managers think, I have a boss or I have a board of directors or so on. And that doesn't mean that founders end up doing everything or micromanaging everything, but they look at the most important details and work hard to get those right. So for me, the examples of Steve Jobs being, very specific of every detail of the iPhone, or I've seen Bill Gates doing product reviews, getting very deep into the technology to understand it, and having a personal impact, even when a company is very, very large. I think that only really happens when a true founder is running a company.
Do you want to work with him or for him, Mr. Musk?
Honestly, I'm at a stage in life where I'm not sure I want to work for anybody.
Why not? Why not, really? I wanted to ask you about this. Because as someone who admires you and follows you and really appreciates the things that you did for tech world, I always had this idea about you that you're not obsessed with being politically right in any way.
I'm not obsessed with being politically correct, but I am trying very hard not to be political in any way. For me, we're in this world of political division of the right versus the left, or, the West versus the East, etc. For me, my politics is more about we're all people. We're all so much more in common than we have that divides us. We all love our children, we all love our parents, and finding the things that unite us is my politics. The world is getting more and more divided, and the more that happens, the more I look for what are the things we can agree on, and let's make those things happen. That's a big reason I'm putting my time into code.org, because everybody agrees that we should teach computer science in schools. The idea that the language of the future, the secrets to creating the technology of the future should only be taught in some schools and leave other kids behind, everybody can agree that that's a problem we should solve. I've never seen any political party go against it. So for me, my politics is about things that bring us together.
But I've seen political parties going against it.
No, I've never seen
I mean Iran, but it's okay. Anyway, okay. But what's your where comes this emphasis of yours on I'm not interested in working for anybody?
It's not that. It's more that I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and entrepreneurship is an act of creation. It's a little bit of an act of rebellion, and it's an act of independence. And so I enjoy the freedom and the independence of creating what I want to do, setting my own hours, things like that. And I'm never going to say never. There might be opportunities where I'll say one day, if this opportunity I never imagined comes up, I'll work for somebody else. But I don't need a job, so I enjoy the freedom of getting to make my own rules. And I think a lot of people wish to have that freedom.
You mentioned the story of you leaving Iran in your childhood. And I'm aware that you're trying to get back to Iran and do things for this community and ecosystem in Iran, especially about education. What's your plan in Iran right now, and what are the projects that you're working on?
The big project we're working on, and which actually on Monday we'll be launching, is Code.org in Farsi. So Code.org has, for 12 years now created the leading courses for teaching computer science and coding in schools. And almost 100 million students are on the Code.org platform, but almost zero of them are learning in Farsi because our courses have been translated from English into Spanish and Arabic and Chinese and Portuguese and all these other languages, but our courses have not been available in Farsi. Until basically this Monday when we launch Code.org in Farsi, not only we're translating everything into Farsi, we're making it the highest quality translation Code.org has ever made. And so, for a decade, anytime I post about Code.org, somebody will comment on my post saying, برای بچه‌های ایران چیکار می‌کنی? And the reality is, living in America, it's not a lot you can do برای بچه‌های ایران. But making Code.org's educational materials available in Farsi and making the best quality in Farsi is something that's definitely possible. And so not only can you learn to code in Farsi, you can watch videos of many of the lecturers. We have people like Bill Gates explaining how operating systems work, or the founder of Instagram explaining how images are stored in ones and zeros, and having those people, but their voices in Farsi, is a really special experience. And we actually have Iranian technologists, both men and women, people working at tech companies that you recognize, but speaking in their native Farsi tongue, explaining basically the concepts in our computer science courses. So we're very excited to unveil that. We hope that students all around that speak Farsi can take advantage of it, and that parents or teachers can introduce Code.org to Farsi-speaking students all around the world.
Speaking of your activities in Iran, and speaking of embargoes and sanctions, is there anything that you should be worried about? Because as far as I know, Code.org is huge on partnerships with big techs in USA. So what will happen with your partnerships with the other big techs around the world? And is there anything that you should be worried, or we should be worried about your activities in Iran? Is there anything you think you should mention about this?
Sure. This project is not in collaboration with any government. So we're not working with any government. We're also not working against any government. It's really a project by Iranians, for Iranians, and for children. And it really is sort of a borderless activity to make our courses translated in Farsi. We aren't making any direct partnerships or signing any contracts or alliances with groups in Iran. We're not doing something that sort of goes against the US sanctions. And even when you talk about our relationships with the large technology companies, we're an NGO, we're a non-profit organization that's completely independent. Many of the technology companies give us funding, but ultimately we decide what we are going to do with that funding. And this particular project is funded entirely by Iranian Americans who've decided, most of them are immigrants like myself, and they see it as an interesting way to basically support Farsi-speaking students all around the world.
And let's talk about AI, please. What will happen to coding? Of course, I'm sure you're aware that I followed you everywhere. I know your ideas about the AI and how it's affecting coding in general. But AI is really huge in Iran right now. I think you can really guess why it happened. Iranians, they are really in love with new tech trends. Every startup in Iran right now is investing huge or little on AI, and it's the new fashion in Iran tech industry. But what will happen to the idea of coding after this tsunami of AI?
So coding, I think, is just going to become coding with AI. So when you say what will happen, coding throughout the decades has become easier and easier and easier. And as it becomes easier, it becomes more powerful, more important, and more people do it because it's easier. You know, when my father started coding, it involved literally punching holes into cardboard and putting the cardboard cards into machines. He didn't even have a typewriter. The way he did input was he'd put the data through a piece of paper into the computer, and the computer would give him a piece of paper back out. It's become much, much easier. And as it becomes easier, more people do it. And as it becomes more powerful, more people do it, and it becomes more important. And this has been a trend. Every decade, coding becomes easier and more powerful. AI is just a continuation of that trend, which is going to make coding even easier and even more powerful. So, you know, things went from punch cards to typing ones and zeros. Then you type a machine language, which didn't look at all readable. Now when you write code, it feels a little bit closer to writing English. There's words like if, then, else, but it still is not human readable. We're going to get closer and closer to writing commands in our own natural language. But it still is creating technology. You know, even though AI can write code, you don't see, you know, people who have zero tech knowledge using AI to make apps.
Not yet. Maybe not yet, Hadijan. I heard this idea of yours that, look, I heard this great example of yours. Look, AI can write for you, but it's not like people stopped learning how to write.
Exactly.
And it was such a great example, such a revelation for me as someone that follows you and hears about your idea. But the thing is, actually some people do. Actually, there are new generation of people. There are youth that they think that they don't know, they don't need to know how to design things. They think that the only thing that they need is how to prompt. And even to generating that prompt, they are using AI. So I guess maybe not.
Well, AI needs to be incredibly infallible before we have important code written on it and the person using the AI to do that, not even being able to read it and just trusting it. You know, think about it. If you were creating the code for a bank or for the flying engine of an airplane or the cell phone networks that manage whose call gets routed to where, and the software behind that, if it was somebody who doesn't even know technology is telling the AI, oh, write some code that does this. Oh, I don't even know what it is, and just like enter it into the system. We're nowhere near the point where AI can generate something that is that trustworthy. Even if it makes a mistake 1 out of every 1,000 times, you can't have that. If lives are at stake or if people's money is at stake or things like that. So, and we're nowhere near even a 1 in 1,000 error rate. You should think of it much more today as just AI is a superpower to make somebody who can read much more powerful. I think there's much less, it's a much lower stakes issue if you're making a blog post and the AI writes it for you and you're like, AI can make 20 blog posts, I can throw them all on the internet and get some more search traffic, that's okay. But for certain types of code, it's really, really important not to make mistakes.
Love that. But let's agree to disagree.
I'm sure there's going to be people who are prototyping just using AI without knowing any code, but I would just say that's the new coding. That's still a technical skill.
For me, it's more ideological and it's spiritual for me. Anything that you see on science fiction movies, someday it will come true.
That's probably true. That then is a question of time horizon. I think in the next 5-10 years, it's one thing. If you think 50 years from now, if we reach a point of artificial general intelligence, computers will just do everything for us. And it's really not clear what anybody will need to do if AI can write code and it can do, AI will do our investing, AI will make the robots that mow the lawn, just literally everything that you'd want to do, AI will create a robot to do it for us. That's some future, you know, it's a sci-fi future of, I don't know how far in the future that is. For now, AI is still a real world thing that isn't replacing every part of the human brain. And when it comes to coding, it's still an accelerant, but not a replacement.
Great, it was a great talk, really, Hadi-jan. I really enjoyed it. Are you planning to pay a visit to Tehran?
I don't have current plans, but I really want to come back to Tehran. I haven't been since 1984 when I left as a child. There's so many places I want to see, not just Tehran. I want to see Esfahan, I want to see Mashhad, Kermanshah. There's lots of places I would love to go.
Where is in Iran that you want to visit the most?
For sure, Tehran. I would love to see the home I grew up in.
Where is it?
I was on Mahyar, Khiyabun Mahyar, or Kuche Mahyar, and then right off of Valley Nast. And then I want to see the Maidun Azadi, and then I also definitely want to go see Esfahan. Also Takht Jamshid. I've never been to Takht Jamshid, I've never been to Esfahan. I was too young when I left.
That's not good, man. Especially those sites. I would love to see you with a photo of Maidun Azadi. It would be a classic. Thank you, Hadi. It was nice talking to you. Hope to see you in person soon in Iran or anywhere. And also, I want to thank you, Khater-jan, for setting this up. It was a delight.